So this happened back in 1957, and I've never really talked about it properly until now. I'm an old man these days, pushing 90, and I suppose at this point, what does it matter if people think I'm making it up or exaggerating? I'm not. I wish to God I was. It was Christmas season, 1957. I was 24, fresh out of national service, and like most lads back then, I needed work. Any work. The post-war years were still rough, and jobs weren't exactly falling from trees, especially for someone with no real qualifications beyond being able to march in formation and follow orders. I ended up at Lewis's, one of those massive department stores that don't really exist anymore. All gleaming floors and endless departments selling everything from haberdashery to hardware. They needed a Father Christmas for their holiday grotto, and I needed money. Simple as that. The grotto itself was actually quite impressive for the time. They'd gone all out. Artificial snow that was really just cotton wool but looked magical enough to the kiddies. Painted trees with glitter that got absolutely everywhere. Colored lights strung up in ways that seemed impossibly festive back then. There was a sleigh made of plywood and painted bright red. A little mailbox for children to post their letters. And this throne-like chair where I'd sit for hours on end while children queued around the toy department to tell Father Christmas their wishes. The costume was bloody awful, if I'm being honest. Heavy red velvet that made you sweat like a pig even in December, boots that pinched, and a beard held on with elastic that dug into the back of your head until you wanted to scream. After a few hours in that getup, all the children started to blur together into one endless stream of sticky hands, runny noses, and excited chattering about train sets and dolls. But don't get me wrong, there were lovely moments too. The shy ones who'd whisper their wishes so quietly you had to lean in to hear. The excited ones who'd practically shout about the bicycle or toy soldiers they desperately wanted. Some would sing carols. Some would just stare at you with absolute wonder, like you were actually magical. Those moments made the aching back and the heat and the repetition worth it. I'd been working there about 2 weeks when it happened. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the store was absolutely heaving with shoppers. The queue for Father Christmas stretched past the toy department around the corner, practically to the escalators. I was already exhausted. I'd been at it since opening, and I must have seen what felt like 100 children already. My back was killing me. My face hurt from maintaining the jolly smile, and I was counting down the hours until I could peel off that damned costume and have a pint. The store manager, Mr. Pemberton, was very strict about keeping the line moving. Each child got exactly 2 or 3 minutes with Father Christmas. Time enough to ask their wish, receive a sweet from the jar, perhaps have a photograph taken if the parents paid extra. Then it was, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas, and on to the next one. Assembly line sentiment, really, but that's what it was. I remember this particular boy because he came in alone. That was unusual. Very unusual. Nearly all the children came with parents hovering nearby or grandparents or older siblings. Someone. But this boy looked about 8 or 9 years old, walked into the grotto completely by himself. He was dressed quite neatly, I remember. Short trousers despite the cold, gray pullover, white shirt, school cap. Dark hair, very pale skin, and this serious expression. Not the excitement you'd expect. Just serious. Dorothy, one of the Christmas fairies who helped manage the queue and handed out sweets, gave me a questioning look from her post by the entrance. But the boy moved forward with such confidence, such purpose, that we both assumed his parents were just outside, perhaps waiting by the exit or shopping nearby. It wasn't completely unheard of for older children to go in alone. They liked to feel grown up about it. "Hello there, young man," I said in my Father Christmas voice, all hearty and jolly. "Come sit here and tell Father Christmas what you'd like for Christmas." He climbed onto my lap without any hesitation. He was quite light, thin really, and he positioned himself very primly. Back straight, hands folded in his lap. Very proper, very controlled. Up close, I could see his eyes were very dark, almost black, and there was something oddly adult about his expression. No excitement, no nervousness, no childish energy. Just this calm, evaluating look, like he was sizing me up. "Well then," I continued, keeping up the character, "have you been a good boy this year?" "Yes," he said simply. Clear voice, well-spoken, local accent. Nothing unusual about the way he spoke. Excellent. That's what Father Christmas likes to hear. So tell me, what would you like Father Christmas to bring you? A train set? Perhaps? Toy soldiers? A bicycle? He looked at me directly. Those dark eyes locked onto mine. And without any change in expression, without any hesitation, without any emotion whatsoever, he said, I'd like a bullet gun to shoot my parents with. I need you to understand, time seemed to physically stop. The noise of the store, the Christmas music playing over the speakers, the chatter of the queue, the sound of the cash registers. It all faded away to this distant, muffled buzz. All I could hear was my own heartbeat suddenly pounding in my ears, and all I could feel was this cold spreading through my chest. I just stared at him. He stared back, completely calm, completely serious, waiting for my response the way you'd wait after asking for the time. I'm sorry. I finally managed, and my voice came out strangled. Nothing like Father Christmas. All pretense was just gone. A bullet gun, he repeated patiently, like he was explaining something to someone a bit slow. To shoot my parents with. That's what I'd like for Christmas, please. The please at the end. Jesus Christ. The politeness of it. His tone was so matter-of-fact, so casual, like he was asking for a football or a book. There was no malice in his voice, no anger, no heat, no emotion at all. He might as well have been reciting his times tables. Just a simple request, politely delivered. I could see Dorothy out of the corner of my eye. She'd frozen completely near the entrance curtain. She'd heard. She was just standing there, face gone white as a sheet, hand pressed to her mouth, staring. Young man, I said, and I was trying desperately to find the right words, my mind just reeling. That's not the sort of thing Father Christmas brings. That's not. Why would you want something like that? He tilted his head slightly, considering the question with this thoughtful expression. Because then they'd be gone, he said simply, matter-of-factly, and things would be better. The matter-of-fact delivery, that's what haunts me still all these years later. No drama, no hysteria, no tears, just logical statement of fact, delivered the way you'd explain why you want an umbrella when it's raining. I honestly didn't know what to do. Nobody had prepared me for this. There was no training for what to do when a child asks for a weapon to murder their parents. I felt completely out of my depth, sick to my stomach, and terrified all at once. Where are your mother and father? I asked, and my voice was shaking now. Father Christmas persona completely abandoned. I see, I said, though I didn't see anything except that I was alone in a grotto with a child who just calmly described wanting to commit murder. Dorothy found her voice. I'll fetch Mr. Pemberton, she whispered, and then she disappeared through the curtains, practically running. That left me alone with the boy, with Thomas, though I didn't know his name yet. Just the two of us in this suddenly very small, very quiet grotto, while cheerful Christmas music played outside and families queued, completely unaware. What's your name? I asked, completely abandoning the Father Christmas voice now, just speaking normally. Thomas. Thomas, what you're asking for is very serious. Guns hurt people. Very badly. They're not toys. They're not for children. Do you understand that? I know, he said, nodding. That's why I want one. It needs to hurt them. Otherwise they won't stop. My stomach turned over. Has something happened at home, Thomas? Are your parents unkind to you? He thought about this for a moment, head tilted again, considering. They argue, he said finally. All the time. Every day. Loud. Very loud. It makes it difficult to sleep. Difficult to think. Difficult to do my schoolwork. Sometimes they throw things. Plates. Books. A vase once. Mother threw a shoe at Father last week. One of her good shoes, the one with the heel. It hit him on the head and he bled. Got blood on the wallpaper and Mother cried about that. Jesus. My stomach was churning now, horror mixing with pity. And Father drinks, Thomas continued in that same flat, emotionless tone. The stuff in bottles. Brown stuff. He hides bottles in places, but I know where they are. The garage. Behind the books. Under the sink. Then he shouts more, gets louder, meaner. Mother cries. She cries nearly every day now. She used to not cry as much. Thomas, I said gently, trying to find the right words. I'm very, very sorry. That sounds frightening. That sounds very difficult. But hurting your parents isn't the answer. It's not. I don't want help, he interrupted. And for the first time there was something in his voice. Not anger exactly. Frustration maybe. Nobody helps. Mrs. Patterson next door hears and she doesn't help. The vicar knows and he just tells Mother to pray more. The doctor gave her pills but they just make her sleepy. Nobody helps. Nobody makes them stop. So I need them to stop. I need them to be quiet. I need them to be gone. Forever. The coldness in his voice sent actual chills down my spine. There was no heat, no anger, no emotion. Just cold, calculated logic from a 9-year-old boy. He'd analyzed the problem, considered the options, and arrived at murder as the logical solution. Mr. Pemberton arrived then, pushing through the curtains with Dorothy hovering behind him, wringing her hands. Pemberton was a stern man, ex-military himself, always very proper and concerned about the store's reputation. But even he looked shaken. "What's this then?" he asked, trying to sound authoritative, but I could hear the uncertainty. "I want a bullet gun to shoot my parents with," Thomas said again, turning to face Mr. Pemberton. Same calm delivery, like he was ordering from a menu. "That's what I want for Christmas." Mr. Pemberton's expression went through several rapid changes. Shock, concern, confusion, alarm. He recovered quickly though, professional mask sliding back into place. "I see. And where are your parents now, son?" "Shopping. Women's shoes. Mother wanted new ones for church on Sunday. Father's with her because she needs him to pay." "Dorothy," Mr. Pemberton said sharply, "find this boy's parents immediately. Check the shoe department. Tell them there's been an incident with their son and they need to come to the grotto right away. Be discreet." Dorothy practically ran off, clearly grateful to have a task, to escape the terrible tension of the grotto. An awkward, horrible silence fell. Thomas remained on my lap, completely unbothered by the chaos he'd created. I desperately wanted him off me. That probably sounds terrible, I know, but having this child who just described in detail wanting to murder his parents sitting on your lap, feeling his weight, his small body against yours, it made my skin crawl. I felt guilty about that feeling even as I felt it. He was a child clearly in distress, and I was afraid of him. "Thomas, why don't you come stand over here with me?" Mr. Pemberton said, gesturing. Thomas complied without argument, sliding off my lap and going to stand beside Mr. Pemberton. I felt immediate relief, then immediate guilt about feeling relieved. What kind of Father Christmas was I, being afraid of a child? We waited in terrible, awful silence. The Christmas music played outside. I could hear children laughing, parents talking, normal Christmas shopping sounds. Inside the grotto, nothing. Just Thomas standing calmly, Mr. Pemberton looking deeply uncomfortable, and me still sitting on that throne feeling sick. Finally, felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, Dorothy returned with a couple in tow. The moment I saw them, pieces fell into place. The father was a large man, heavy-set, with a red face and broken blood vessels across his nose and cheeks, the telltale signs of a heavy drinker. He looked annoyed, put upon, angry at being interrupted. The mother was thin, worn-looking, with dark circles under her eyes and this nervous, anxious energy. Someone who lived in a constant state of stress and fear. She was wringing her hands, looking between Thomas and us with obvious anxiety. "What's this about?" the father demanded, his voice already aggressive. "We're trying to shop. We've got things to do." "There's been a concerning incident with your son," Mr. Pemberton interrupted firmly. "He made some very troubling statements to our Father Christmas." "What kind of statements?" the mother asked, voice trembling. Mr. Pemberton pulled them aside slightly, lowering his voice, but we could all still hear in the small space. "Your son requested specifically and repeatedly a firearm. He stated explicitly that he wanted to shoot you both, to kill you. He was very clear about this. I watched their reactions carefully. The father's face went from red to purple. Anger, embarrassment, more anger. The mother put her hand over her mouth, tears immediately springing to her eyes. A brief, heated exchange followed, the father's voice rising despite Mr. Pemberton's attempts to keep things quiet, the mother starting to cry properly now, saying something about "I told you, and this is what happens." Thomas stood completely still throughout this, watching his parents with that same calm, evaluating expression. No fear, no regret, just watching. Finally, the father grabbed Thomas roughly by the arm. "We're leaving," he announced. "Right now. This is ridiculous." "Sir," Mr. Pemberton started. "It might be wise to speak to someone. A doctor, perhaps, or—" "We don't need to speak to anyone," the father snapped, grip tightening on Thomas's arm. I could see his knuckles were white. "Boys just trying to get attention, showing off, trying to embarrass us. We'll sort this out at home." The way he said "sort this out," the anger in it, the promise of punishment, made me physically sick. "Please," Mr. Pemberton tried again. "I really think—" "I don't care what you think," the father interrupted. "This is a family matter. Private. Come on." The mother was crying harder now but said absolutely nothing. Didn't defend Thomas, didn't argue with her husband, didn't protest. She just followed as her husband dragged Thomas toward the exit. Thomas didn't resist, didn't cry out, didn't look back at us. He just went as calmly and quietly as he'd arrived, allowing himself to be pulled away. After they left, the grotto felt like it was echoing with silence. "Should we call someone?" I asked, pulling off the beard because I couldn't stand it anymore. "The police? Surely we should call the police." Mr. Pemberton looked deeply troubled, rubbing his face. "And tell them what exactly? That a child made an inappropriate Christmas wish? There's no evidence of actual harm. No bruises we could see. No proof. And—" he hesitated. "This is 1957. Family matters are private. The police don't get involved unless there's a body. That's just how it is." He was right in that context, that era. Things were different then. Privacy of the family home was sacred. What happened behind closed doors stayed there. "Take a few minutes," Mr. Pemberton said quietly. "Compose yourself. Have a cup of tea. But then we need to continue. There are other children waiting, and we can't let this disrupt the entire operation." So that's exactly what I did. I took 5 minutes, drank some tea that Dorothy brought me, adjusted my beard, took some deep breaths, and went back to being Father Christmas. But I was never the same after that. For the rest of that day, and the weeks that followed, every child who sat on my lap, I found myself studying their faces too carefully, wondering what might be hiding behind their innocent eyes, what might be happening in their homes, whether their Christmas wishes masked darker truths. For years afterward, decades really, I wondered what happened to Thomas. Did he grow up? Did he hurt his parents? Did someone intervene? Did he get help? I looked through newspapers occasionally, searching for reports of family violence involving a son named Thomas. Any incident that might match. I never found anything concrete, though I read about plenty of horrible things. What haunts me most isn't just what he said, but how he said it. The complete absence of emotion, the cold logic, the way he'd already decided at 8 or 9 years old that murder was the logical, reasonable solution to his problem. And the scariest part? Given what he described, the violence, the alcoholism, the complete lack of intervention or help, maybe from his perspective it was logical. I worked as Father Christmas for 3 more seasons after that, but it was never the same. The magic was gone. I kept seeing Thomas's dark eyes, hearing his calm voice asking politely for a weapon to kill his parents. I'm an old man now. I'm 88 years old. Thomas, if he's still alive, would be in his 70s himself. Perhaps he's a grandfather now. Perhaps he became a perfectly normal, well-adjusted adult. Perhaps that moment was a desperate cry for help, and someone, somewhere, heard it and intervened. Perhaps his parents got help. Perhaps things improved. Or perhaps not. Perhaps he did what he said he wanted to do. Perhaps he found another way. Perhaps he just endured until he could leave. Perhaps his childhood destroyed him in slower, quieter ways than murder. I'll never know. I've tried to find out over the years, but without more information, a last name, an address, anything, it's impossible. But I still remember, with perfect clarity after more than 60 years, sitting in that grotto in Lewis's department store, wearing a hot Father Christmas costume, and hearing a child calmly, politely, rationally ask for a weapon to kill his parents. I remember his dark eyes, his thin arms, his serious expression, the way he said, "Please." Some things you just don't forget, no matter how many years pass. And sometimes late at night, I still wonder, did Thomas get what he wanted for Christmas? Not the gun, obviously, but did he get what he really wanted? Did the arguing stop? Did things get better? Or did they get worse? I suppose I'll go to my grave wondering. And that Reddit is my story. Make of it what you will. If you enjoyed these stories and want more eerie encounters, strange moments, and unsettling confessions, go ahead and like this video. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story. I need to tell you about something that happened to me 15 years ago. Something I've never really been able to shake, no matter how much time passes or how many ordinary, happy Christmases I've experienced since. It was December 2008, and I'd been working as a professional Santa for about 3 years at that point. I don't mean the mall Santa gig, though I'd done that too. I mean the kind where you get hired for private events, corporate parties, hospital visits. The pay was decent, and honestly, I loved it. There's something genuinely fulfilling about making kids smile, about being part of their Christmas magic, even if it's just for a few minutes. That year, my agency got a request I'd never encountered before. A children's hospital, a major one in the city, wanted a Santa to visit their burn ward, specifically the pediatric burn unit. I remember sitting in my apartment when I got the call, and I remember the long pause I took before saying yes. I'd visited hospitals before, sure. I'd sat with sick kids, kids with cancer, kids who were spending Christmas hooked up to machines. It was hard, emotionally draining, but also deeply meaningful. Those visits mattered. But a burn ward? That felt different. That felt heavier. Still, I said yes. How could I not? The hospital gave me a whole briefing before the visit. They explained the protocols, the sensitivities, what to expect. They told me that some of the children had been through unimaginable trauma. House fires, accidents, abuse cases that I didn't want to think too hard about. They warned me that some of the injuries would be severe, that some children would be bandaged extensively, that I needed to be prepared for that. They emphasized that I should focus on normalcy, on bringing a moment of joy, on not reacting to what I saw. I thought I was prepared. I really did. The day of the visit, I arrived early to get into costume in a private room they'd set aside. I remember looking at myself in the mirror. Full Santa regalia, perfect white beard, rosy cheeks courtesy of good makeup, and giving myself a little pep talk. You've got this. Just be Santa. Just be present. Give these kids a good memory. The burn ward was on the 4th floor. The moment I stepped out of the elevator, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just a hospital smell, that antiseptic, sterilized air. It was something else, something heavier. The lighting seemed dimmer, the hallways quieter. There was a weight to the place, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. A nurse named Patricia met me at the nurse's station. She was probably in her 50s, with kind eyes that had clearly seen too much. She smiled warmly, but I could see the exhaustion around the edges. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft. "The kids have been so excited. We told them Santa was coming, and you should have seen their faces light up. That made me feel better. That's why I was here." We started in the common room, where a few of the more mobile children had gathered. These were kids who could walk, who weren't in critical condition, though many still bore visible signs of their injuries. Scarring on their arms, bandages on their hands, one little girl with a compression mask covering half her face. I sat in a big chair they'd brought in, and one by one they came to sit with me. I remember their names. Jason wanted a remote control car. Emma wanted art supplies. Marcus wanted his dog to visit him. Normal kid things. Beautiful, normal kid things. I listened. I laughed. I promised to do my very best to make their wishes come true. Some of them hugged me, some were shy. All of them were braver than I could ever be. After about an hour in the common room, Patricia approached me again. "There are a few children who couldn't come out to see you," she said carefully. "Would you be willing to visit them in their rooms? Some of them are in isolation or can't be moved because of their treatments." "Of course," I said. "Absolutely." And that's how it started. We went room by room. Each visit was brief but intense. I met a boy who'd been burned over 60% of his body, lying in a specialized bed, who could barely speak but whose eyes followed me the entire time. I met a little girl who'd lost both her hands in an accident and who asked me, with heartbreaking earnestness, if I could bring her mittens for Christmas because she got cold. I met a teenager who tried to act too cool for Santa but who I could tell appreciated the normalcy of the visit. And then we came to room 408. Patricia paused outside the door, her hand on the handle. She turned to me, and her expression was different, more serious, almost apologetic. "This is Michael," she said quietly. "He's 7. He's been here for 3 months. House fire. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He's been through a lot, more than most. He doesn't speak much anymore, but his therapist thought a visit from Santa might help. Just be gentle. He's very fragile emotionally and physically." I nodded, my chest already tightening. "I understand." She opened the door. The room was dim, just a single lamp in the corner providing a soft glow. The blinds were drawn. There was medical equipment everywhere. Monitors beeping softly and 4-stand, a specialized bed with what looked like a tent structure over it to keep the sheets from touching the patient. And in that bed was a small figure. Michael. Even in the low light, even with my preparation, I wasn't ready. He was wrapped almost entirely in bandages. White gauze covered his arms, his legs, his torso. His face was visible, but it was badly scarred. Angry red and pink patches of healing skin, areas that were still raw, one ear that was partially missing. His hair was patchy, burned away in places. But his eyes, God, his eyes were so alive, so aware. They locked onto me the moment I stepped into the room. "Hey, Michael," I said, keeping my voice warm and gentle, channeling every ounce of Santa energy I had. "I heard you've been a very brave boy this year. I thought I'd come by to see you myself." He didn't respond. He just stared at me with those huge, dark eyes. Patricia whispered something to a nurse who'd been sitting in the corner. I hadn't even noticed her at first, and they both stepped out into the hallway, giving us privacy but staying close. I could see them through the small window in the door. I moved closer to the bed, slowly, making sure my body language was non-threatening and calm. I pulled up a small chair and sat down next to him. "You know," I continued, "the North Pole has been pretty busy this year. Lots of nice kids on my list. But I wanted to make sure I visited the bravest ones personally. And I heard you're one of the bravest." Still nothing. But he hadn't looked away from me. Not once. "Is there anything special you'd like for Christmas?" I asked. "Anything at all?" For a long moment, there was only silence. The beeping of the monitors. The faint hum of the hospital ventilation system. The distant sound of someone walking down the hallway outside. And then, slowly, Michael moved. Clearly hurt him. I could see it in the way his body tensed, in the tiny grimace that crossed his face. But he pushed himself up slightly, leaning toward me. His bandaged hands gripped the edge of the specialized bedding. My instinct was to tell him not to strain himself, to lie back down, but something stopped me. There was an intensity in his gaze, a determination. He wanted to tell me something. He needed to. I leaned in closer, bringing my ear near to him, because his voice would be quiet. I was prepared for a whispered wish. Toy. A game. Maybe something heartbreaking like, "I want to go home," or, "I want it to stop hurting." Michael's face was inches from mine now. I could hear his breathing, raspy and labored. I could smell the medicinal ointment on his bandages. I could feel the heat radiating from his damaged skin. And then he spoke. One word. Just one single word. Whispered directly into my ear. So quiet I almost didn't hear it. Skin. I froze. Everything in me went cold. It wasn't what he said, though that was disturbing enough. It was how he said it. There was no emotion in his voice. No inflection. No childlike quality. It was flat. Empty. Dead. Skin. I pulled back slowly, trying to keep my expression neutral, trying to stay in character, but I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. Michael was staring at me, his eyes completely unblinking, his face expressionless. And then something else happened, something I still can't fully explain. As I looked at him, as our eyes met in that dim room with only the sound of medical equipment between us, I could have sworn I saw something flicker across his face. Not an expression exactly, more like a shadow, like something was moving beneath the surface of his scarred skin, rippling under the damaged tissue. I blinked, and it was gone. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. The dim lamp, the exhaustion, the emotional weight of the day. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there, just for a moment. Something that had been looking out at me through Michael's eyes. I'll see what I can do, buddy, I managed, my voice tight and unnatural even to my own ears. He didn't respond. He just kept staring. And then, just as slowly as he'd sat up, he laid back down, his gaze finally breaking from mine to stare up at the ceiling. But before he settled completely, I heard it again. That same word, but quieter this time, almost like he was talking to himself. Skin. And then again, even softer. Skin. Like a mantra. Like a prayer. Like the only word he had left. I stood up, my legs feeling unsteady. I made myself smile, made myself wave, made myself say something about seeing him on Christmas Eve before I backed toward the door. My hand fumbled for the handle. I couldn't get out of that room fast enough. The moment I stepped into the hallway, Patricia was there. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I opened my mouth, then closed it. What was I supposed to say? That a burned child had just asked Santa for skin? That it was the most disturbing thing I'd ever experienced? That I'd seen something impossible moving beneath his damaged flesh? He spoke, I said finally. He asked for something. He did. Patricia's face lit up. That's wonderful. He hasn't spoken in weeks. What did he ask for? I looked back through the window at Michael, who was still staring at the ceiling, completely motionless. As I watched, his lips moved again, forming that same word silently. Skin, I said quietly. He asked for skin. Patricia's smile faded instantly. For a moment, she just looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Recognition, sadness, maybe even fear. Oh, she whispered. Oh, Michael. She glanced through the window at the boy, and her expression became something I couldn't quite read. There was grief there, certainly, but also something else. Something that made my stomach turn. Has he said that before? I asked. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Every night, she said. When he has nightmares, when he wakes up crying. That's all he says. Just that one word over and over. The psychiatrist thinks it's a trauma response. His body trying to process what happened, what he lost. She paused. The fire, it was bad. Very bad. He was trapped in his bedroom for almost 20 minutes before the firefighters could reach him. His mother and sister didn't make it out. The weight of that information settled over me like a physical thing. This child had not only lost his skin, his physical wholeness, but also his family. He'd been burned alive while his mother and sister died somewhere else in that house, and he'd survived only to wake up to a reality where everything he'd known was gone. I'm sorry, I said, though the words felt hollow and inadequate. I didn't know. Most people don't, Patricia replied. His case file is extensive. There were some complications early on. Infections, failed grafts. He's been through more surgeries than most adults will have in their entire lives. She looked back through the window one more time. Some of the night shift nurses say he talks in his sleep. Not just that one word. Full conversations. But when they listen closely, they realize he's not talking to them. He's talking to someone else. Someone who isn't there. A chill ran down my spine. Who? Patricia met my eyes, and in that moment, I saw that she was just as disturbed as I was, that she'd been carrying this burden for months. His mother, she whispered. He's asking her for skin. He's asking her to give him his skin back. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I finished the rest of my visits in a complete daze, moving from room to room on autopilot. I smiled and laughed and listened to other children, but part of me was still in room 408, still hearing that single word whispered in my ear, still seeing that impossible rippling movement beneath damaged flesh. When I finally left the hospital, it was dark outside. December darkness, cold and complete. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time, still in my Santa suit, just staring at the concrete wall in front of me. The fake beard itched. The padding around my stomach felt constrictive, suffocating. I couldn't get Michael's face out of my mind. Those eyes, that empty, hollow voice. Skin. I tried to rationalize what I'd experienced. A traumatized child asking for the one thing he'd lost. Nothing supernatural about that. Nothing truly disturbing beyond the obvious tragedy of the situation. The shadow I'd seen moving beneath his skin. Exhaustion, tricks of the light, my own imagination filling in details that weren't there. But I couldn't shake it. Something about that moment felt wrong on a level I couldn't articulate. It wasn't just sadness or horror at what the child had endured. It was something else. Something that made my lizard brain scream at me to run, to get away, to never go back. I called my agency the next day and told them I needed a break. I didn't tell them why, just that I needed time off. The woman I spoke with was understanding. She probably thought I was burned out, no pun intended. She told me to take all the time I needed, that there would be work for me when I was ready to come back. I didn't wear the Santa suit for 2 years after that. During those 2 years, I tried to forget about Michael. I threw myself into other work, other aspects of my life. But every December, as Christmas approached, I would think about him. I would wonder if he was still in that hospital, still wrapped in bandages, still whispering that single word to the darkness. I tried to look him up once, about a year after my visit. I called the hospital, asked about him, said I was the Santa who'd visited and wanted to know how he was doing. They couldn't give me specific information due to privacy laws, but the woman on the phone went quiet when I mentioned his name. Michael, she repeated slowly. From the burn ward. Yes, I said. I visited him in December 2008. Room 408. I just wanted to know if he's okay. If he's... I'm sorry, she interrupted, her voice strange and strained. I can't discuss patient information, but... Sir, are you sure about the room number? Yes, I said. 408. Why? Another long pause. That room has been closed since January 2009, she said finally. There was an incident. It's not in use anymore. My blood went cold. What kind of incident? I really can't say. I'm sorry. HIPAA regulations. But if you're looking for information about a specific patient, you might want to speak with. I hung up before she could finish. I never called back. I never tried to find out what happened. I think on some level I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe that Michael had gotten better, had gone home, had found some kind of peace. But the way that woman's voice had changed when I mentioned room 408, I knew that wasn't the case. It wasn't until 3 years ago that I got any kind of answer, and it came from the most unexpected place. I was working a corporate Christmas party. I'd started doing Santa gigs again by then, though I still refused hospital visits, when a woman approached me during my break. She was probably in her 60s, well-dressed, with a name tag that said she was from some pharmaceutical company. But there was something familiar about her face. Excuse me, she said quietly. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but were you working as a Santa back in 2008? At City General Hospital. I felt my stomach drop. Yes, I managed. How did you? I was one of the nurses there. Patricia. I don't know if you remember me. I remembered. Of course I remembered. You visited the burn ward, she continued. You met a boy named Michael. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Patricia looked around. making sure no one was close enough to overhear. Then she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I need you to know something," she said. "Something I've never told anyone, because I didn't think anyone would believe me. But I saw your face that day, when you came out of his room. I saw that you felt it too, that something was wrong. Not just sad or tragic. Wrong." "What happened to him?" I asked. Patricia's eyes were haunted. "He died 3 weeks after your visit. On Christmas Eve, actually. The official cause was organ failure, complications from his injuries. But that's not the whole truth." "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "The night he died, I was working the late shift. I heard screaming coming from his room around 2 a.m. Not just his screaming, multiple voices. I ran in, and..." She trailed off, her hands shaking slightly. "He was sitting up in bed, completely awake, his eyes wide open, and he was pulling at his bandages, tearing them off. Underneath, his skin was moving, writhing, like there were things beneath it trying to get out. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The Santa suit suddenly felt like it was crushing me. I tried to stop him," Patricia continued, "but he was strong, impossibly strong for a child in his condition. He kept screaming that one word, over and over. Skin, skin, skin. And then he looked at me and it wasn't him anymore. It was someone else looking out through his eyes. Something else." "What happened then?" I whispered. "He collapsed, just fell back onto the bed. By the time we got him stabilized, he was gone. But before he died, he said one more thing. He said, 'She gave it back. Mommy gave it back.'" We stood there in silence, in the middle of that cheerful corporate Christmas party, with festive music playing and people laughing and the world continuing on like nothing was wrong. "They closed room 408 after that," Patricia said. "Claimed it was for renovations, but that wasn't true. The other nurses started reporting things. Sounds coming from inside when it was empty. The smell of burning flesh. Shadows moving across the window from inside a locked room. They sealed it off eventually. Officially, it's storage now. But no one goes in there." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Patricia met my eyes. "Because you saw it too. In that moment when you were with him, you saw something. I could tell. And I needed you to know that you weren't crazy. That it was real. Whatever it was." She walked away after that, disappearing back into the crowd of corporate employees with their holiday drinks and their festive cheer. I never saw her again. I still work as Santa. I still do private events and parties. I still love bringing joy to children. Still believe in the magic of Christmas despite everything. But I never take hospital assignments. Ever. When my agency asks, I tell them I have personal reasons, and they've stopped pushing. Because every time I think about putting on that suit and visiting sick kids, I'm back in room 408. I'm back in that dim space with the beeping monitors and the smell of medicinal ointment. I'm leaning in close to a bandaged child who's been through unimaginable trauma. And I'm hearing it again. That one word, whispered in a voice that wasn't quite human. Empty, hollow, dead, skin. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm trying to fall asleep and the world is quiet and dark, I can still feel it. That moment when our faces were inches apart. That moment when I saw something ripple beneath his damaged flesh. That moment when I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was looking at something that shouldn't exist. Something that was wearing Michael like a suit, desperately trying to hold itself together, asking Santa, asking anyone, for the one thing that might make it whole again. Skin. If you enjoyed these stories and want more eerie encounters, strange moments, and unsettling confessions, go ahead and like this video. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay curious.